Welcome to the Great Lakes Fishing Podcast presented by Fishhawk Electronics. If you're looking for news, tips, and stories about fishing the Great Lakes, you've come to the right place. And now your host, Chris Larson.
Welcome to the Great Lakes Fishing Podcast. Today we're joined by Russell Gahagan from the Reel Shot Sheboygan. Reel Shot sponsors and organizes head-to-head fishing. It's a bracketed fishing tournament that is streamed live online. Russell, thanks for joining us today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Russell, the first ever head-to-head salmon tournament starts in less than a week, but head-to-head fishing has been around for a while. Tell us a little bit about how the Reel Shot got started with this.
Yeah, the Reel Shot's founder, Brian Keller, he is the owner of the Appleton shop, the Reel Shot, and he had this idea actually quite a while ago, probably 10 years ago. Had mentioned it sort of in passing to a couple of people when he was tournament fishing for walleyes, that he thought a head-to-head formatted tournament where it was a one-on-one, bracketed deal was pretty cool. Then of course in the last 10 years, times have changed a little bit with the internet and social media and all the different things. And about middle of last year, Brian came to me and to his dad and a few others, sort of in confidence that he had an idea where he wanted to stream live fishing tournaments in this head-to-head format. And we all, of course, thought it was a really good idea. We weren't sure if he could pull it off, but he's very tech savvy and he was able to. So he held two, I believe, bass tournaments the fall of 2019 as sort of testers to see, how the equipment would work and things like that. And it went really, really well. And then in 2020 here, we started off this year with walleye and bass tournaments, and I think there's already been 4 or 5 walleye tournaments, 4 I want to say for sure, and I think there's been 2 or 3 bass tournaments. So it's been a pretty exciting year. You can find head-to-head fishing on Facebook, YouTube, h2hfishing.com. There's a bunch of ways to view this, both live and after the event. And then one of the cool things Brian added here in just in the last few tournaments was an audio-only version that can be found on h2hfishing.com. So if you're at work and you're able to put headphones in or whatever, but you can't be staring at your phone, you can still listen to the tournament, which each and every tournament is commentated by a couple of commentators, which is kind of where I come in. I've been doing the walleye ones, and I will be doing the salmon ones.
What made you guys decide to do a salmon tournament? Again, last year you did the bass, you had the walleye. What kind of went into the decision, let's do this with the salmon world as well?
Well, the big thing was we wanted to test the market. We're not sure how it's going to go, how it's going to be received. I think obviously with my background being in Great Lakes salmon fishing and walleye fishing, I think the two compare very well. And so far I would say that this has taken off much, much, much larger in the walleye world than it has in the bass world for head-to-head. That probably is just because of competition. There's some pretty hefty circuits in the bass world, some pretty big branded circuits. In the walleye world, I don't think there quite is. So, that's kind of been the case. I think the walleye fishermen at home, the weekend walleye guys are sort of starving for, viewership, be able to watch people walleye fish. It's not as common as it is bass, and I think it's going to be the same thing in salmon fishing. So, Brian and I talked about it, and we both agreed that it would be fun to do and try. There is some obstacles, obviously with streaming this, we're using basically cell signal, so you're not able to go out onto the lake 20 miles or anything like that. So there is some restrictions and some boundaries and things like that. But, I think for the most part, it's going to be fun. We got, as you mentioned at the start of the show here, we've got one coming up next week in Sturgeon Bay that I think has 2 spots left that we're looking to fill before the event. And then we have another one in Sturgeon Bay at the end of August and one or middle of August range. And then we have one in Sheboygan beginning of September. And those last 2, the Sturgeon Bay and the September Sheboygan, are both full already. Those ones we announced back in spring, and they filled up right away.
So this is a new event. I did notice looking at your website that this one coming up here wasn't on the original schedule. What went into deciding let's add another one here?
Yeah, so that's been one of the things head-to-head's done all year. Some of it works, some of it doesn't, right? Is 2020 has been basically a pilot year for head-to-head. I can say in confidence that, we've got a lot of really cool things coming in 2021, of which some of it I think we're going to announce on social media tomorrow via head-to-head's new live show. And really, I mean, the big thing is we're just testing stuff, just trying to see what, kind of the old throw the dart at the wall theory and see what sticks. And, so we're testing things. So what ended up happening, I believe, was an event that they were looking to do got canceled. I can't remember if it was a walleye or a bass event for whatever reason. So we thought, let's try throwing a salmon one in there. And basically, we thought, well, let's try to do a salmon one before the big two that we already have filled so we can kind of get our feet wet with it. The other thing is fishing's really good. Salmon fishing in the state of Wisconsin right now is really good in general, up and down the Wisconsin shoreline. Lots of king salmon being caught, lots of coho salmon, steelhead, lake trout. Even though it's a salmon tournament, as we call it, anglers will be able to weigh all 5 species. So kind of some exciting stuff. It's a little different format. So the head-to-head, obviously, via the name, is one angler versus one angler in the walleye and bass tournaments. So you're fishing by yourself. You have a cameraman / official. That cameraman calls the penalties and things like that. Sort of watches the monitor. Everybody's following the rule, or that angler is following the rules. In the salmon tournaments, it will be 2 anglers and a salmon and the camera official. So you will have 2 anglers, but for anybody that's fished Lake Michigan, Lake Ontario, Superior, with even 6 poles out, 6 lures in the water, you could get a double, triple, or even a quad at any time. And that is going to be complete chaos live on the air if that is lucky enough to happen, which I'm sure it will sooner or later. And when it does, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch how these 2 anglers manage, 2 or 3 or 4 big fish on at one time.
Yeah, that should be really interesting. And that was kind of something I wanted to ask you about. And you had talked about earlier about the bass stuff and, Major League Fishing's out there where you can watch bass tournaments as it's happening. But I don't think, to my knowledge, anyone's ever done this with the salmon tournament. Have you guys?
Nobody's ever done it with walleye, and nobody's ever done it with salmon that I'm aware of. Nope.
So it'll be the first time you'll actually be able to watch a salmon tournament as it's happening, which will, I think, be really cool. And like you said, unedited, when things happen, things are going to happen. So tell us a little bit about the format. You got into it a little bit there, but what fish can be brought to the scale? How does it all work? If someone is interested in getting into it, what is the format?
Well, a couple things I think are important first, like you mentioned, and that's the most important. It's unedited. It's live. So things do happen. Decisions are made that other people don't agree with or whatever the case may be. And that's sort of part of it, right? It's almost like a reality TV show to some level, which I think is fun and part of the deal. You get to watch people make decisions, good and bad, both fishing-wise, ethically-wise, things like that, on the water, live. And that's part of what happens in tournament fishing. The other thing that I think is really cool and I like a lot is, unlike any other tournament in the world that I'm aware of anyways, you get to watch the winner every time. So what I mean by that is, MLF, like you said, jumps around boat to boat or whatever, right? But you're not necessarily going to see the winner of the tournament, or you're not going to see the winner the entire time or any of that. So with head-to-head, there's only 8 boats on the water at a time, and there's a camera person on every boat. So you pretty much are going to watch the winner catch every one of their fish. Unless the camera goes down or we're in the middle of a battery swap or something, we show via either replays or live every single fish that's caught in every event. That's kind of the cool part. So you get to watch all of that stuff happen as it happens versus happening, you hearing about it or you seeing, a couple minutes of what was a 16-hour tournament weekend for an angler. So the basic rules for the salmon event are 2 anglers, like I said, 6 lures. They are allowed to keep 10 fish, which is their legal limit, and they will weigh their biggest 5. And the simple rule is anything over the gunnel has to go in the cooler. And that's just ethically and morally for the fish's safety. One of the things Head to Head is really firm about is, being as best to the safety of the fish as we can. In the walleye and bass tournaments, all the fish go back. In the salmon tournaments, the fish that they keep away, obviously, they will actually physically keep. And I think we're going to donate those to a food pantry. But if they catch a smaller fish, that they don't want to keep, they have the ability to net that fish, keep it in the water, and unhook it and let it go safely, rather than bringing it in the boat, letting it bang around, beat itself up, them struggle with it, and then try to release that fish. So that's a real key rule in the salmon tournaments that's very, very different from the other tournaments head-to-head runs. So each team will make a decision basically when they net a fish if they want to or do not want to keep that one. So they'll be able to catch up to 10. When they get their 10, they'll obviously be done at that point. If it's before the 5-hour period is over, they will head in with that amount of fish, and they'll weigh their biggest 5. And there will be a tally, live on the screen that will show their biggest 5 fish the entire time. As I mentioned, each of the tournament periods are 5 hours. Start times will vary a little bit for the salmon, just because we want to catch that first light bite. I think the one next week's going to start at 5. I think the one in August will probably be 5:30, and that would be my assumption with the one in September as well, 5:30 a.m. So it'll be like 5:30 to 10:30 type of deal. Now, the other advantage about head-to-head is because we have a camera official in the boat, we don't count their run time. Or in other words, they get run time. They get about 45 minutes that they can, head to where they want to start fishing. So in most cases, the anglers are in their spot and have all their gear ready, waiting to fish before their time starts. Where a lot of tournaments, it's like a shotgun start, or you get let go by numbers, and the tournament started already before you actually leave. And then you got to use run time to get to your spot and back. So this one's nice. I think it's a little safer that way. Guys aren't pushing it so hard. They're not trying to race to their spot and race back, beat the clock, all that kind of stuff. Really the only thing you're trying to beat here clockwise is just trying to catch as many fish in that 5-hour period as you can.
Very cool. So they will fish one day, all 8 anglers at the same time, and then the winners of each of those kind of bracketed slots will advance. So then they go out the next day. Then how does that work? How does it progress through the bracket?
Yep. Yeah, so the standard format is 16 anglers / teams, teams for salmon. The particular one we're going to run next week, we're just going to run 8. Again, we're just trying to kind of do, I think, like a pilot, version of the salmon tournament just to get it going. But the 2 we have in August and September will be the basic head-to-head format, which is 16 teams / anglers, depending on what species. And so in other words, 8 boats will fish on Monday morning. 8 different boats will fish on Tuesday morning, and then starting Wednesday, you'll be cut down to 8. And then it's those same 8 will fish Thursday, because the losers move to a losers bracket. And then on Friday, we call it Finals Friday, you were down to 6 boats. We have a championship match, of course, the 2 anglers / teams that have not lost yet are in the championship match. We have a match for 3rd and 4th, and then we have a match for 5th and 6th. That's the standard bracket. Next week, what we're going to do, just a little bit different, is we're going to do 8 on Monday, 4 on Tuesday, 4 on Wednesday. And the payout will be 1st, 2nd, 3rd in the standard events, which is what you'll see the rest of the year, both walleye, bass, and salmon. The payout is top 5 places. So that's why we have six boats or anglers fishing on Friday. And we do that, it was kind of an edit that was made. The first event we ran, there was only the championship, I believe, on Friday, and then I think we went to top 4 boats, and we ended up settling on 6 and paying down a little further just to try to keep it a little more entertaining for the fans. As you can imagine, here's a great example. Anybody that follows head-to-head knows that head-to-head did some filming over the weekend for what ended up being the world record walleye tournament held here in Wisconsin on Lake Winnebago this past weekend, called the Battle on Bago. 375 2-person teams participated in this event. Head-to-head was out on 8 boats. Well, the issue with it is when you have a very low number, like 2 or 4 boats, the action can be somewhat limited. So what we've found is if we can keep it, at a minimum of 4 or 6, then, it gives us better action for sure.
Sure. If someone wants to join, there's a couple spots left in next week's head-to-head. How much does it cost? How do they get signed up?
Yep. So all they got to do is go to h2hfishing.com and go under the registration tab, and it shows the Sturgeon Bay event, which is starting next Monday. So in 6 days, they can sign up right there. I think it's an 18-foot boat minimum. Again, it'll be 2 anglers, and it's $500. And we will be paying the top 3 places. It will be an exciting event. Hopefully we can get that thing filled up. Like I said, I think there's a couple spots left. So it should be fun, and should be a real exciting time. I've been watching that Sturgeon Bay bite, and the fishing is heating up there pretty darn good. I'm seeing the charter boats up there starting to put 4, 5, 6, 7 kings in a trip. So if the weather remains the same here for the week like it's supposed to, nice weather, that fishing's only going to get better and better every day we get closer to that event next week. So if we can get a couple more teams in it, it should be a ton of fun.
Yeah, if someone wants to be part of a reality show, no one can be in a reality show for $500. So you're splitting it up between 2 guys. It's not bad at all.
No, and that's the last thing I'll mention as far as that kind of goes, the registration. That is, it's kind of a no-brainer money-wise. If almost anybody who really wants to could go get a sponsor. And, if you win one match, for example, you win your opening match in this particular event, which is a little bit different format with 8 boats. But if you win your opening match, you're guaranteed 15 hours of airtime for $500. I mean, there's no sponsor in the world that, knows anything about marketing that wouldn't be interested in some way of working with you on that. And that's really what we think is going to make head-to-head a really big deal long term, is we think we're going to be able to fish for some pretty good money down the road. And we don't think the anglers are going to have any trouble working with sponsors to get that money to fish, because again, we've, any angler that's in the regular format, when you got 16 boats, any angler who makes it to the final day has had 20 hours of coverage. I took second in a walleye tournament, one of the national walleye tournaments out there a couple of years ago. I got about 2 minutes and 30 seconds of airtime coverage on their TV show. And no knock to them. That's just the way they run their show. It's like a 20-minute show total. But it's just, you're just not, that's a hard sell to a sponsor. Hey, can you sponsor me for the season? I'm going to wear your logo on my shirt, and I'll get you some airtime when I do well. And they look at when you take second place in the largest field ever in that particular tournament circuit, and you got maybe 2 minutes of coverage. So, that's what's so cool about the head-to-head deal is it sells product. It literally sells product, because there's people all over the country who love fishing and love fishing for, those particular species, or just want to get into it or whatever. And they literally can watch you do it and watch what you're using. And it draws all kinds of people into buying good stuff and the right stuff. And they get to watch the people use it and catch fish doing it.
Where can people watch this?
So the 3 best places to find it is on Facebook. If you just like the head-to-head fishing page on Facebook, we always have it streamed live on there every time we have an event. Then we just mentioned before the h2hfishing.com. That's the website. That every event gets live streamed on the actual front page of the site. Plus the audio version also has a link on the top of the front page of the site. And then lastly, we have a YouTube page for head-to-head fishing. You can subscribe to that, so it'll let you know when we're going to have stuff. And every time we have an event, it's streamed on YouTube Live. That's becoming probably the most popular way, just because people want to watch it on their TV, and a lot of people will, they've got smart TVs now or whatever that can hook right up to YouTube, and we get, we have a little chat board. If you want to join into the chat, you're welcome to, and you can meet all the people that watch it. We'll have 700, 800, 1,000 people on the chat at a time or more. I think I've seen it up as high as 1,500 people in the chat talking about what's going on out in the fishing. And people will mention on there all the time, watching on my 55-inch screen, watching on my 60-inch screen. And that's pretty cool. If you got the time that you can drink a cup of coffee or eat a sandwich and watch head-to-head fishing, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, sounds really cool. Russell, what are some of the kind of the big challenges for you guys just to pull this off? I mean, it sounds like a technical nightmare. What are some of the challenges for you guys to get this pulled off and get this on the air?
Well, quite frankly, to be 100% honest, it takes a lot of capital. I mean, that's the first and foremost. I mean, that's probably the thing that's kept it from happening. I don't know the numbers, and Brian Keller, the owner of TRS and Head to Head, he would know obviously what that money is. But what I can tell you is I know it's a lot to have 8 cameras, 8 camera crews, the equipment to be able to run all those cameras at the same time. And you got to have staff to do it. He's paying commentators and a tournament director. But past all that, really the biggest thing is trying to find the happy medium for everybody. My involvement is as a commentator, but also, I work closely with Brian and Kyle, the owner and the tournament director on rules and different things. So I've got quite a bit of experience in the walleye tournament world and salmon tournament world. And what we're trying to find is this happy medium that works really well for the anglers, but really well for the fans, because this is the first circuit that I've ever seen in any fashion, any species, any fashion, that the fans have as much input as the anglers and the tournament director. And what I mean by that is we have fans all the time in the chat make suggestions and things like that. And there's some things we're just never going to change. Like there's no live bait allowed in the walleye and bass tournaments. We are allowing meat rigs in the salmon tournaments, but there's no live bait allowed in the walleye or bass tournaments at all. That will never change. But there's been other rule changes that fans have suggested or liked or asked to see, or format changes or whatever, and we've done it. Matter of fact, we had a tournament, our last walleye tournament, we actually took a vote on the fans to make a change or not during the event, and they actually voted not to. So it's totally never seen before stuff. I mean, nowhere else is in any sports arena, basketball, football, baseball, fishing, anywhere I've ever seen are the fans actually making the rules. And to some level, that's what's going on here. Not completely, obviously, but to some level, we're allowing the fans, they're such a part of it. And that's, what makes Head to Head what it is if there isn't thousands of people watching it, then it's not really what it's all about. So the numbers are huge. I want to say that after, each day of an event, some of the numbers are approaching over 50,000 views, in a day. So that's some pretty big numbers, some pretty cool stuff. So it'll be a lot of fun to see where this goes by the end of the year, as we have another walleye tournament yet, a couple salmon tournaments, and I think a bass tournament or two.
Very cool. Russell, is there anything about head-to-head fishing that I haven't asked you about that you wanted to bring up?
Not really, other than I think just keep everybody who's out there paying attention to head or just finding out about it, come join us, come watch a couple tournaments, but then keep your nose out for what's going on next year. Like I said, there's some really exciting stuff coming as far as head-to-head fishing for 2021. And I think it's going to be a game changer. I think it's going to change a lot of what people think about tournament fishing. We've already done that, and I think it's going to just continue to do that. And Brian Keller over at The Real Shot just continues to work hard to stay a step ahead of everybody else on this thing. And he's done a really nice job with it.
Why don't you throw out that website one more time for people who want to get more information about this or check it out?
Yeah, if you want to check out any past events, you want to register for an event, you just want to read the rules, you want to watch some replays, all you got to do is go to h2hfishing.com. That is the website. It's got all that stuff on it. You can also, I suggest you like the Facebook page, which is Head to Head Fishing on Facebook, or also the YouTube page, which is Head to Head Fishing. All of the old events are on there. Replays, interviews. I guess one of the cool things we do that is fun is we also do a pairing show, which is really neat. Obviously, when we have the signups, we do a random Facebook vote. They don't know who each angler is. We just do 1 through 16 anglers. We just assign them a number. Nobody knows who they are. I don't even know who they are as a commentator. And then we put them on the bracket, and then we reveal who they are. So it's kind of like an NCAA thing bracket, but you don't know who any of the anglers are until their name pops up. So the anglers get just as excited about that as we do. And actually, we've been bringing the anglers on during that event on Skype and been kind of talking to them most of the time live out on the water as they're pre-fishing for these events, getting a little look at what they're doing, how it's going, how the fishing is, how they think the fishing is going to be for the event. So literally it's like fishing in somebody's boat in your living room as you're watching. You're like on board with them, having everything happen right in front of you.
Very cool. Russell Gahagan from The Real Shot, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing this with us. I think it'll be something that the salmon and trout world are going to really enjoy. I know that people have really enjoyed watching the walleye tournaments. So thanks for coming on, and thanks for you guys for putting this together.
Not a problem. I appreciate you bringing us on.
Thanks for listening to the Great Lakes Fishing Podcast presented by Fishhawk Electronics. For more information on fishing the Great Lakes, visit our blog at fishhawkelectronics.com.